back at it again. I don't know if you guys suffer with this, but I definitely do, and that is thinking about all the craziness that's happened in the past. That's me. I'm kind of crazy like that. You see, the problem is I keep thinking about all the things I've done in the past and how I could have changed the past, or I could have done something different just to change the outcome of things, and that just gets me so stressed out. What has me stressed out is I'm always thinking that maybe I could have changed the results. If I would have done that a little different or this a little different, it would have changed the results of something, and that's a complete misconception. See, I always find myself thinking about how could I have done better in the past, or if maybe a deal or something didn't work out, maybe a grade didn't work out, or a relationship didn't work out. Like, what would have life been if it did work out? Or perhaps, what could I have done better to make it work out? Because sometimes things fail and it's usually my fault, and I just sometimes get stressed out with why is that even happening that way. Thinking about an engagement that got broken off with me, and thinking about how I didn't get into a specific school that I was supposed to get into. I start thinking about all these things that happened that didn't go right in my life, and you know what that gets me feeling like? Let me tell you what that gets me to feel like. You see, when we start thinking about the past and all the things that went in our past that didn't go in our favor, we could become depressed. It happens because we're focused on all the things that are out of our control. When we start focusing on all the events that happened in our lives that was not in our control, naturally we feel down about things, and the shaitan makes his plan that way. The shaitan will start whispering in your ears and putting thoughts in your heads that look what just happened over there, and think about what your life could have been, coulda, woulda, shoulda. The shaitan plays off of this idea of thinking about what could have your life been like if you would have made a simple decision. But you're forgetting one factor. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one responsible for those decisions. Nothing happens without the permission of Allah. So if something didn't go your way, it's naturally because Allah did not want that for you, no matter how much you wanted that for yourself. Alright, before we continue to talk about depression, I want to let you know that I have a pretty long day today. I have to go just grab a quick coffee, got some work to do, got some videos to edit, got a class to teach. I got a whole lot of things to do, but stay tuned. We need to talk more about depression, and I want to know your thoughts right now, underneath right now. What is something that you're depressed about, or have you ever faced any type of depression? Let me know in the comments. But it's freezing, and my hands are frozen. I gotta put this down. Alhamdulillah, guys, this time around, yesterday, if you remember, I did not pray on time because I just got caught up with things, and if you've been following the vlogs, you know I didn't wake up for Fajr on time today. So I'm asking myself, SQ, how can you draw closest to Allah and make up for your miss from yesterday and this morning? The answer is simple, pushing myself a little further. Yesterday, I got caught up with stuff and wasn't able to give this priority right here. I gave other things priority, and now it wasn't my fault. Obviously things happened and I had to do stuff, and things happen, you know, people make mistakes. And this morning I didn't wake up for Fajr on time, and I prioritized my sleep and my nafs this morning. So I want to ask myself, what could I do to change that? And the answer is this: one, change the repetition from yesterday. Fix that. Instead of waiting to the end for prayer, pray as soon as you can. That's number one. Number two, I'm gonna do a little more dhikr, a little more, dua, and probably read some Quran after this, just so I can make up for missed time. Because if I spend my time thinking about the things that I missed yesterday, the salah I missed yesterday, and the Quran that I didn't read, or that Fajr I missed today in the morning, if I keep spending time looking towards the back, looking in that rear view mirror, it's going to cause me to not be grateful to the gifts of Allah now. And it will cause me to not be not only appreciative now, but it'll also cause me to not take action now. Living in the past makes you not take action. Remember this. We'll talk more about that. Now, there could be a lot of causes and reasons for depression, but our scholars of the religion have attributed depression to something very interesting. Let's explore what that means. It's known as a disease of the heart. Now, the scholars have said that there's certain things that we do with our lives and our body, and especially our heart, that causes it to manifest into depression. For example, we're filling our heart with tons of things. Imagine this is some water going inside of the heart. Now, what fills in this heart, for example, you want to put maybe relationships, love, material, money, and just stuff that's important to you. Now, here's the thing about this. We all have things like this in our heart, but it is missing one thing, one component, and that is God. The feeling good of this is powered by essentially this, but sometimes we have more of this and less of this over here. So scholars have interpreted that when you don't have a good relationship over here, it impacts the entire thing, because though these things make your heart feel good, at the same time it causes your heart to also reject it, because eventually these same things are not going to make your heart feel good because it's missing a bigger component, and that is essentially, without this component over here, without your heart being filled with majority of this, it's always going to feel like it's lacking in something. Now, here's a misconception. A lot of times people think that because you're depressed means that you don't have a good relationship with Allah. Let's check that out. Guys, mental illness, depression is considered a mental illness, is a real problem that people suffer no matter how much of Allah they have in their heart, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests each person in a different manner. But to assume that a person has a bad relationship with Allah because they're depressed is a false assumption. Yes, it should be the first thing that we look for when we are trying to diagnose depression or trying to find the cure of depression, but it's not the only thing that we need to look for. Mental health and mental illness is a real problem that human beings face, and because you're facing it, just know that there's a huge reward for the fact that you are challenged with such difficulties. Let's explore this a little more. You see, we understand in Islam that you're rewarded according to the struggle that you and I are tested with. So when you are struggling with depression, like genuinely, like there's something wrong in here chemically, that you're suffering with depression, just know that your reward is higher than the average person who is not suffering with that mental illness of depression, because you have to deal with all of that sort of stuff that you can't get rid of. Like, it's a real problem. Your reward for struggling to get rid of it, your reward to struggle to worship Allah even with those conditions and live a day-to-day life with those sort of conditions, is rewarded at a higher level than anyone else. So this struggle essentially of depression is a blessing from Allah, especially if you consider it that way. Because a lot of times people think that because you're depressed you have a bad relationship with Allah, when that's not true at all. Feeling sad, feeling depressed is a very natural thing for people to be in, but to remain depressed because of something that happened before, you need to ask yourself, are you still living in the past, or are you like gonna trip because you keep looking backwards and you're not looking forward in the future towards the rewards and the bounties of Allah? You know what gives me depression? Reflecting over my sins. And not just reflecting over my sins, but committing the same sins over and over again that I thought Tawbah for. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. Tell me in the comments below. When you commit sins, it's just like it takes away from all your progress, and that gives me depression. I think we just found out tomorrow's topic. Plan of action right now is to go home. It's kind of late. Haven't seen my wife, the girls, nothing. Go home, handle some business. No hijab client today, alhamdulillah. And get ready for Fajr. Hang out with the family. Then I'll catch you in the morning, I guess. What upsets me the most when it comes to depression or regarding depression is when people assume that depression comes from a lack of iman or lack of faith, when that's just not true. Depression is an actual chemical imbalance thing. Now, there's different types of depression, right? There's a depression that your cat died or something to have a depression, and there's a depression that you just wake up and there's something clinically wrong with you. And you know, both require help. But to assume or presume that one person who has depression has a weak iman or lacking iman, that's just incorrect, and that's just not an empathetic way to approach things at all. Though the heart does play a big role, though deen does play a big role in the tolerance and the patience of the depression for sure, the first assumption should never be that they have weak iman. When I speak to people who talk to me about depression, one of my first questions is, how is your salah? How is your relationship with the Quran? Because 9 out of 10 times, if you do have depression, and when I'm speaking to the youth, their relationship with Allah is just not there. And there's an overwhelming amount of guilt that comes from that, and there's an overwhelming amount of things that aren't going right in your life because of that. And that's a normal question for me to ask. But for me to assume that someone who is suffering from depression, for example, if I see a post or make a judgment about someone who I don't understand and I haven't really inquired about, that they have depression because, oh, look, okay, they're doing the wrong thing, they're not, worshiping Allah correctly, it's a false assumption. I need to do a better job that, yes, it does play a big role. We also need to make sure that we understand the entire situation happening too. I, for one, definitely have suffered through depression where I felt like nothing was going to change, and this really happened when it was just a sour relationship. And I think one of the topics I'll be speaking on this vlog soon, but for right now, that's my talk about depression. This is what it looks like from my window right now. I got late to this vlog, couldn't really do a sunrise for you guys, but I love you all for the sake of Allah. I haven't really heard much feedback for you. I don't know if these vlogs are doing that well. I don't know if you are benefiting from this. It's not about me vlogging, it's just like, are you still benefiting from this? So if you are benefiting from this, hit this with a thumbs up and drop a comment below if you made it this far. But yeah, make sure you subscribe as well too. If you guys are benefiting from this, make sure that I know about it, because that's what keeps me motivated to keep going as well too. Jazakallah for watching, guys. I appreciate you all. I love you all for the sake of Allah. Until next time, I gotta go.